Hey everyone, so today I thought I would talk about my type 1 diabetes diagnosis story. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2004 when I was 9 years old. My poor mom, it was such a chaotic time. My parents were going through a divorce and we were living with my aunt and uncle at the time. I don't remember everything. It's pretty fuzzy, but I believe that it's progressed pretty slowly. One thing that was really crazy was my gym teacher at the time brought in his daughter had type 1 diabetes, and she came to our school and spoke about it. I had so much anxiety as a kid, still do, but I was so traumatized by her speaking about type 1 diabetes. I thought it sounded so scary, so horrible, which was not the point of her coming at all. It was just to tell us about her diagnosis, and not everyone is the same. But I went home and just told my mom how horrible this sounded, how scared I was about it, and I literally asked her, am I ever gonna get that? And she was like, no. And she has told me that she will never say never, because literally a couple months later I was diagnosed with the exact same thing. It was so crazy. She couldn't even believe it. So anyway, back to the story. I remember being very thirsty and needing to go to the bathroom more often than usual. I was also losing a lot of weight, but I had of course, with all my anxiety, I had a phobia of throwing up. And so for a while I wasn't eating a whole lot. And so I think everyone just kind of thought I was losing weight because of that. And my mom did have me in therapy for that, by the way. But I was working on being able to eat food again. And so I think maybe the weight loss was just thought it was because I wasn't eating a whole lot of food at the time. But I remember every day the thirst would get worse and worse. Like, it was all I could think about was just drinking so much water. I remember being at church one time and I was drinking out of the bubbler, and there was this man in back of me, and he jokingly said, save some water for the fish. I was just at the bubbler standing there just drinking so much water. I physically could not get myself to stop. I was so thirsty. I just could not get enough water. I just wanted to stand there and just never stop drinking it. It was weird. I didn't know why I was so thirsty. I just remember thinking, like, I cannot stop drinking this. In school, I would always have to leave class so frequently because I just needed to keep running to the bubbler, running to the bathroom. I had to drink, and then I had to pee, and then I had to drink again, and then I had to pee. And I was doing it so frequently that the school started to think that I was just making this up to get out of class. And I remember being so scared because I was like, they can't tell me no. Like, they have to let me drink and they have to let me pee, or I'm going to die and pee in my pants. Like, I was like, I can't stop. I don't know why, but I cannot stop. I now know that the reason I was drinking and peeing so much is my body was trying so hard to flush out all the excess sugar that was in my blood. Then one day came where I threw up, and we all just thought I had the stomach flu. The only thing that was so odd about this time was right after I threw up, I was asking my mom for popsicles, which normally I don't think would be all that strange, but throwing up was such a traumatizing experience for me as a kid that to ask for anything to eat or drink after throwing up was just so out of the ordinary for me, because I was very much under the mindset, if I don't have anything in my body, there will be nothing to throw up. Therefore, I just will not eat. I won't, have any of that. Then I will never throw up, which was my thinking when I was little. So the fact that I was asking my mom for popsicles after I threw up was just so weird. And I remember her saying something to me like, oh, this is such a good thing that you want this, because it was a good thing that I wanted to, drink or have a popsicle after I threw up. But it was definitely very out of the ordinary for me. And it was just because I was so desperately thirsty. After having what we thought was the stomach flu, I think I was better for maybe a day or two. And this would be such an interesting video to do with my mom, because she, I'm sure, remembers way more than I do. My memories are all very just pieced together. But it would be really interesting to listen to her perspective, because I'm sure she remembers way more. But anyway, a day or two after getting better, I threw up again. And I just remember thinking, man, I was just sick. Why am I sick again? what is going on? And I was still so thirsty. Like, I can't even like describe to you, like I can still kind of remember it a little, but like the thirst was like, I was like, I distinctly remember, like this is such a distinct memory. I remember laying on the couch when I was sick and watching the show Hey Arnold, and in the show they were at a public pool, and watching the show I just remember looking at that public pool or whatever, thinking I just want to drink that. Like I want to drink an entire pool of water. Like it was like an all-consuming thought all day long. Every minute of the day, I could not think of anything else other than I am so thirsty. So I'm not sure how long this went on between like getting what we thought was the stomach flu and then getting better and then getting sick again. I can't imagine it went on very long because I was not getting better. But one morning I woke up and I could not walk. And I think I was just like, I was so delirious and so lethargic. And I remember I just could not walk. And my sister said that I was sitting on the couch, and I turned around to look at her, and she said that I had like big like black circles around my eyes. And I learned later that that was from being dehydrated, which I thought was crazy because I was drinking so much liquid. And she just remembers it and says like it was so scary like to see me turn around and look the way I did, because she's like, you were so pale, but the circles around your eyes were so black. Anyway, my mom took me to the doctor and she had to carry me because I could not walk. We brought those like 32-ounce large Gatorades along with me because I just needed to drink something. And I just remember like downing these huge Gatorades because I was so beyond thirsty. I do remember being in the waiting room, and there was this boy from school who was also in the waiting room at the doctor, and this boy and I did not get along in school, and my mom knew that. And he was across the room. Don't really remember this. I kind of do. I remember seeing him, but my mom said that I literally got up and started waving my arms and shouting his name and being like, hi. Like, he never brought that up at school, which I very much appreciate because how embarrassing. But I was just like so delirious. I don't know. And apparently seeing someone that I knew made me happy, and I like found the strength to get up and like scream his name and hello across the room. Like, oh my gosh, that is so embarrassing. I'm so glad he never brought that up at school. For as much as we did not get along, that was very nice of him. So my mom carried me into the room, and I don't remember anything except being transferred into another room with a bed, and I was just laying in the bed then. And my grandma and my dad came to, see me, and my grandma was so worried, which was very like off-putting for me because my grandma always made me feel very calm. She was always like a very calming presence. And in that moment, I just remember her looking at me and looking so like scared to death. But I couldn't understand why. Like, I could not piece together why she would be so worried because I couldn't comprehend everything that was going on. And she was just looking at me like, dear God, be with you. Like, and so that, I distinctly remember that because it was so strange for her to be so worried. I then remember going into the ambulance and them turning on The Little Mermaid on like the little TV because it was gonna take an hour to get to the children's hospital from where we were. Like, I also remember being like kind of excited to like hear if you could hear the sirens inside the ambulance. Like, as a child, I always wondered that, like, if you could hear the sirens when you were inside. And I remember thinking like, wow, I'm actually going to get to find out if you can hear them. And I must have fallen asleep before the ambulance even left because I don't remember the ambulance driving. I don't remember the sirens. I don't remember anything other than them turning on The Little Mermaid. That was it. I remember that the ambulance did get a flat tire and we had to stop on the side of the road, and another ambulance had to come, and we had to be transferred to another ambulance. Other than that, and I must have fallen asleep before that ambulance left too because I don't remember ever if I heard the sirens or not. But yeah, so we were transferred to Children's Hospital, and I don't remember much about the hospital. I remember like bits and pieces. Like, I remember them checking my blood a lot, which I did not like. I remember them taking, my blood from my arm as well, which I did not Like, I remember people visiting me. I remember one thing I remember is I was not thirsty anymore and I could eat without throwing up. And so that, I do remember that because I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, wow, I can actually eat and not throw up this time. Now knowing that the reason I was throwing up after I ate is because my blood sugar was so high that my body was just trying to get rid of like the sugar by peeing, the sugar by throwing up, drinking liquids. Like my body was trying so hard to survive what was happening. I don't remember, I'm sure someone did, but I do not remember anyone ever telling me that I had diabetes. Like, did they just tell my mom and my mom told me? Maybe I watched a video. I remember them having me watch something, but I don't remember anything about what I was watching. So it could have been that, but I don't ever remember anyone being like, you have type 1 diabetes. Actually, back then they called it juvenile diabetes because they didn't think anyone over 30 could get it. Like, they literally told us, they're like, after you're 30 years old, you can't get it anymore. And I remember, I think my sister was like, okay, I just have to make it to 30, then I'm not gonna get this. Which now I believe is not true. I think you can get it at any age, which is why they just call it type 1 now and not juvenile diabetes. But yeah, I don't remember anyone ever like telling me. I remember drinking a lot of root beer. I remember drinking a lot of diet root beer because I guess I wanted soda and it was the only diet soda they had at the hospital, and so I drank a ton of that. And even to this day, I cannot drink root beer. I do not like the smell of it. Like, root beer floats, like it all just makes me think of being diagnosed with diabetes and being in the hospital. I do remember my mom telling me that they told her that my blood was 1200. Like for those of you who don't know, a non-diabetic, their blood sugar is between 70 and 80. So 1200, like literally, like no wonder I was so thirsty and felt so sick, because that is wild. Like now, as like in the present time now, like my blood sugar very rarely but will sometimes get to 400, which is, you know, like very dangerous. And I feel, and it doesn't happen often, but randomly, like if I count something wrong, like really wrong, or if like my pump, like randomly my pump will get pulled out in the middle of the night and my blood will like skyrocket. Like 400 feels so awful and you feel so sick and so like uncomfortable. Like you just like, you can't even, like I feel like I can't even be like in my skin. Like it's so awful. I can't even like actually imagine 1200. That's insane. But it explains why I was so thirsty and peeing all the time and was throwing up, that's for sure. So I remember a lot of like what led up to the diagnosis, but I don't remember being diagnosed. And I remember a little bit after, like I don't remember leaving the hospital. I do remember we had to do a lot of like training videos at Children's Hospital, or not training videos. I remember we had to do a lot of training classes at Children's Hospital, which I was 9. So the only thing I remember of those is I thought they were incredibly boring. But yeah, I remember more of the leading up than I actually do the actual diagnosis and the actual hospital stay. I really don't remember much about it. But if you like these kind of videos, let me know. If anyone's interested, I could make a video on what life was like after I came home from the hospital and what it was like returning to school and learning how to do shots and check my blood, because with my anxiety, it was quite traumatizing. I think it would be traumatizing for anyone, honestly, like being a child and one day you're just, for lack of a better word, normal, you know, you're just whatever, and then you come home and it's like every time you eat you have to do a shot, every night you have to do an injection, every so often you have to check your blood, and it was a lot. And so I could make a video on that if anyone's interested. But yeah, leave a comment below if you would like to see that kind of video, or, you know, comment if you have a diagnosis story or know someone else who has had a diagnosis story. I feel like they're all very different but have a lot of the same elements, like the thirst, the having to go to the bathroom, the extremely high blood sugar number. Yeah, so just let me know in the comments. And also, if you would like to see a video with my mom, if there are enough people who ask for it, maybe I could convince her to come on and talk about her experience with it, because honestly, I don't even think I've talked to her much about her experience with me being diagnosed. It's all when she talks about it, it's very much like she talks about what I had to go through. But it would be interesting because she was terrified to give me shots. She was so, I can imagine, I can't imagine how overwhelmed she had to have been during this time, especially like she was going through a divorce. We were living with my aunt and uncle. All these things were happening, and it would be really interesting just to get her viewpoint, because like I don't remember a lot of stuff. I don't remember the hospital. I don't really remember the ambulance. I don't remember the classes. I remember like my point of view of going back to school, but I don't know any of the behind the scenes of like what she all had to do to put everything in place for me to go back to school, especially because my school did not have a school nurse. So I can imagine that it was more challenging than maybe a larger school who does have a school nurse. But yeah, if you would like to see a video with her in it, maybe comment below and let me know and I can talk to her about it. But thank you all for watching.